This podcast is not a replacement for therapy. All conversations, guests, tips, recommendations, etc., that are discussed are provided as educational, thought-provoking, inspirational insights, and not specific professional therapeutic or psychiatric advice. Our views expressed are our own personal experiences, insights, and perspectives. Information heard here is to be used at your own caution and discretion. As always, please seek out your own mental and medical health care to best serve you.
And we are back. The cousins are at it again. Relative Insights. This episode is the third episode in our 4-part series on cheating. Mm-hmm. Today we will be discussing emotional affairs or emotional infidelity. Right now we'll dive into the definition. Emotional affairs describes a relationship between two people that mimic or resemble a romantic relationship without sexual contact. There is some overlap between this and micro-cheating because emotional affairs tend to start out as friendships. Mm-hmm. So, are there some examples that you can share?
Make a point of saying these are just some examples. These are not all the examples. So if whatever you're going through isn't fitting into this mode, please know that this is not an exhaustive list. But, and I'm just going to also say I feel very attacked on this list. But
because you like to talk and you like to connect with people?
Yes. And I'm just like, okay, so the first one is...
Oh, well, wait, before you attack yourself, there's one thing that I wanted to add to this definition. Mm-hmm. When I was reading on these definitions, I think that there are ways in which you connect with other people and you have emotional connections. I think the key part is when you are taking your energy from your romantic relationship and your partner is losing out and you are directing it to another person.
Absolutely.
Where now the priority has switched. Where like, I don't care about sustaining an emotional connection with my committed partner. I'm going to offer it to someone else.
Absolutely. Thank you for making that point.
You're welcome.
Yep, that was in a lot that I read too, is the fact that like, yeah, you're gonna have emotional connection with people, but
for sure
affecting your current relationship. So one of the first examples was the work spouse, which I see this joked about all the time on TV, like, oh, you got a work husband, or you got a work wife. And some people were just like, I don't really care. It's not a big deal. But other people were just kind of like, yeah, I don't like this. Right. It makes me feel uncomfortable. But work spouse is considered like a special and initially a platonic relationship that comes along with privileges such as flattery and validation. There's increased attention and dependence on work spouses. And then also like maybe like very well known throughout the office, like, oh, that's Jen's. As our work hubby. But like,
I don't know. You know what? I resent this. I don't like people enough at work. Don't be trying to tie any of my coworkers, colleagues, or bosses to family, because I'm not tied to work that much.
Absolutely. But a lot of people are, because we spend so much of our life at work. Like, I mean, I work from home, so it's not the same, but I
must be nice
out there. Yeah, it is. It is so freaking nice.
Those are my goals one day.
Trying to find a real, I should say real, a
don't say real
out there.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm tired. I want MLK Day off too. Like, and I want to get paid for it.
You just have a mean boss Who makes you work on MLK Day.
Exactly, because she'd be like, look, ho, you ain't getting paid. You need to work. You need to work. I'd be like, yes, self, I do need to work. But I feel like the problem comes in with the work spouses when, like, sometimes I think someone starts to develop some emotions in that. And it's like you start to lean on your work spouse a little too much. It's like it's not all fun and games. It becomes an emotional connection, an intellectual connection. And I'm going to say intellectual intimacy because a lot of people don't know that, like, there are a lot of different types of intimacy. It doesn't always have to be sexual or emotional. Intellectual intimacy, absolutely. We have that with a lot of people, and we don't even realize that's the case.
Well, I didn't even realize that sexuality could be tied with intellectualism and the mind, but I think we discussed that in a prior episode where, like, some people are aroused by the intellectual. Yeah, for sure. That's I'm pointing the finger at me. I didn't know that was a thing, but it's,
I think I am too, cause like, man, I love sparring conversations. Like, afterwards, I feel exhilarated. Like, dang.
I like how you're looking. You went to a totally different place, caressing your lips. That looked like some self-care. All right, we're getting off topic. I loved it.
I'm thinking I do love like a really deep intellectual conversation. Like, you don't have to be talking to me about like Einstein's theory of relativity, but like, even if it's something like related to mental health, like I feel like that was one of the main things that drew me into my ex-husband, was that we had psychology in common, and our conversations were so deep in the beginning. And I was just like, dude, I love this.
Yeah.
Don't we get to get drunk while we're doing it? Like, this is amazing. This is the bee's knees. Okay, but the next one is the gaming buddy. This is the one I felt attacked on because, I'm a huge gamer. And the thing is that with gaming, it's kind of hard not to develop like strong connections with people. Like, especially if you're playing a game called Destiny, where like we would do long, like, hours and hours of raiding together, right? So in that, I mean, that's how I met my current partner. But like, you get so like you have so much of a connection because you have to learn that person's quirks. Because in order to like game with them and game with them well, you have to learn how to communicate with them in a way in which they're going to receive it, so that they can be beneficial to the team, and then during that time where you're like, wiping or starting stuff over and over and over again, you do start to get to know that person. You're starting to ask about their personal life, and so it's kind of hard sometimes not to, but I'll just say this. Okay. Typically part of the larger group at first, gaming buddies become increasingly demanding of each other's time and emotional attention. They become the priority over time and may begin to outweigh their spouse in terms of attention and time. Can't tell you how many couples I've had where the client is like, I feel like they enjoy their Call of Duty friends a lot more than me. Like, the minute they wake up, they're putting on a headset. And I'm like, babe, like, can we? And then I go in there and I try to talk to them, and they don't want anything to do with me. I think in those cases, some people don't
say maybe it's because what they want to talk about is boring compared to Call of Duty.
Wow. I was about to say, I think you when you want to say something, cuz what you want to say? No. Okay,
listen, so yawn.
As a Call of Duty player, I will say that I thoroughly would like to talk to my partner after the match. Like, don't come talking to me if I'm in the middle of a match. Like,
for sure.
Let's not do that. But no, yeah, okay. Dang it, cuz.
You know what? Okay, I'm just going to, I don't know.
I mean,
what's the purpose of a relationship? I think that you need to devote I hear what that person is saying. If a partner is being inattentive on a consistent basis
Yeah.
and it's hurtful, then
Yeah.
you need to be more mindful, but also
Yeah.
take care of yourself. And so make sure you know when you're at your best
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that you set aside time and energy to your partner. But guess what, partners? You don't get 24/7 access all the
That's
time.
a good point. Yes.
And that
Go
people
find
need to
something else
self
to do.
care because that video game can be meditative and can be
Mm-hmm.
something that is needed in order for them to show up in other aspects of their lives.
Yeah. I
So,
mean, I will say this also goes to what I'm going to talk about eventually, concerning like why people have emotional affairs, because, gaming is a form of escape, and so, maybe there needs to be a discussion in that relationship of like, okay, why is my partner choosing to game 24/7, instead of spending time with me? Am I making this a safe space for them? Or are they happy in the relationship? Whatever have you. But okay, the best friend, the best friend may have been around a really long time, maybe even before the primary relationship, but it has always been platonic. However, if this best friend is consistently challenging like the spouse being able to prioritize their partner, then there's a problem, right? Um, I've heard of people being like just really protective of their bestie, at the expense of their partner. And that's not okay. That's never okay. Like, I'm not saying your partner should be priority over any and everybody in your life or anything, but they deserve the right amount of respect, and I don't know, like, would you want your partner to be like, yo, don't be talking about my bestie or me and my bestie got, time to spend. You need to stay here and do the laundry. I'm just saying, like,
yeah.
whatever it is, it's just, it's not okay. And then the reconnection, again, this is not an exhaustive list, but the reconnection, meaning like bumping into a childhood friend or reconnecting with them through Facebook.
You're guilty.
No,
You're
I
you're
was crazy
laughing.
to say. I'll tell you why I'm laughing. This starts as an innocent nostalgia, but can quickly progress to flirting that deepens into emotional intimacy that overshadows their primary relationship. I laugh because that is how my ex-husband found his current partner, which I like her, but they knew each other in high school. She reached out to him on Facebook, and then she literally just moved here last weekend to be with him from Indiana. So,
Wow.
it can be helpful reconnecting to an old friend, or, but again, let's figure out what to do with that current relationship. If you're unhappy in that relationship and then somebody reaches out to you, an old friend, and you feel something, because you do feel stuff, right? Something stirring up in you, something is not okay in your current relationship. You need to take a step back and figure out what's going on, right?
Yeah.
I'm done with that. If you want to go into the signs.
Yeah, I will. Signs of emotional infidelity can start to look like frequent contact, spending time together,
Mm,
frequent sharing.
mm.
What are you sharing with this other person?
Does that
And
include
again,
memes?
no, it
Memes
doesn't
and
include
Instagram reels, because
memes.
I like to share.
It doesn't include memes or reels.
Oh,
I
okay,
mean,
okay.
ultimately, are these reels
Mm,
showing that you're prioritizing this person more so
no,
than your
no.
relationship? If this person is becoming the first person that you want to call with any news, that's what they're talking about with
Mm.
frequent sharing.
Dude, that's a good
Constant,
point.
yeah,
Huh.
constant thoughts. The person you are having an emotional affair with becomes the focus of your attention.
Mm,
And this gets into how it mimics a romantic relationship. When you're in a honeymoon stage of a relationship and you're excited, you have this feeling of excitement, and you wake up and this person is the first person that you think about,
mhm,
or the first person that you think about when you go to sleep. that is showing a strong bond. Even like, oh, I'm thinking about this person constantly during the day. That's kind of all tying into, oh, if I'm thinking about this person constantly, they're taking the place of my main partner.
Yeah.
And that leads to reaching out and communicating with them constantly.
Absolutely. I had such a naughty thought enter my head. I'm like, I'm not going to say that.
Say it.
But I was just thinking, or if you're in bed and you're falling asleep, your hand just travels down there and you're thinking of that person. I'm sorry. Clearly.
That's not emotional affair because
Why?
that's sexual contact, because sexual contact has been made. So
but
that's turning,
but it's with your own body.
That's escalation. That's escalation, I'd say.
But that's your own body though. That person doesn't know. They don't know that you're thinking about them when you're, I'm gonna stuff in your spank bank.
I'm gonna set that one on. I think that crosses the boundary. Because now that's the beginning of making stages. The next one is feeling understood. And so when you're believing that this person really gets you in a way that no one else does, where you're like, wow, I finally feel understood, or I finally feel accepted. That is something that's, while it sounds like it could be, a close friendship, if that's starting to make you feel resentment towards your current partner, or it starts tearing down the intimacy, connection, communication with your partner, then that's something altogether different.
Dude, I have never even thought about that, but that's a really freaking great point.
Yeah. I think that can kind of rock someone where all of a sudden you look at your partner and all of a sudden they're kind of dropping in your view and estimation. Inappropriate sharing. So emotional affairs can begin with conversations about work and other topics, but then they often shift into more intimate details about your life, relationships, personal issues, even your sex life. So yeah, are you oversharing? Yeah, might be beginning with one particular person, then yeah. Unfair comparisons. As you're growing closer to this person, you might begin to judge others in comparison to them. You may frequently compare them with your partner, even to the point of getting angry with your partner for not doing things like the other person. And it could be anger. It could also be contempt, where you might not pick a fight with your partner, but you might just all of a sudden, there's this increased dissatisfaction. Spending more time together. In addition to always being in touch with this person, you might spend a lot of time together, find excuses or create reasons to spend time with them. Maybe you stay out together after work or make plans on the weekends with them. And again, this is someone who you are prioritizing over everyone else, where they are taking a lot of time. And then there's always that aspect of secrecy when you're starting to lie or keep secrets. This can look like lying by omission, where you don't always mention your talks, meetings, lunches, texts, or phone calls. And you also take steps to hide these communications. For example, deleting messages from your phone or denying that you're talking to them when asked. Or even as we said with the micro cheating, as you also said, when you go outside to have a conversation.
Micro cheating. I feel like secrecy, that's like a big, huge aspect of that's like the biggest micro cheating is secrecy. Like if you feel like you have to keep this a secret, then you're doing wrong.
And so there's this overlap because someone else is replacing your partner's level of connection. Finally, the last sign is that there's less time for your partner. Your partner is getting less and less of you, while the special person, side person, is getting more, whether it's less communication, affection, thoughts, or access to your innermost world. Your time and focus energy is being taken from your partner and transferred to this other person. So, yeah, this is something that is like people will naturally, you're not expected to spend all of your time with your committed partner. Or having emotional connections is typically not a problem. It's when this connection with one person is taking over your life and is causing interference with your relationship. And I think it's hard to, and I'm just going to say that's the last one. I think that there can be a level of denial if this is someone that you work with, or say you're in school, or this is a colleague of some sort, or you're in college or university, because you can have this level of denial of saying, oh no, we need to connect because of whatever, this other shared connection. So
Absolutely. So I think that kind of moves into then the reason why people have emotional affairs or participate in emotional infidelity. This is, again, this is not an exhaustive list. It's not like we're in everybody's head and like we know exactly why. But for the most part, the research shows that first and foremost, having relationship struggles is one of the main reasons, which includes like ongoing conflicts or arguments, lack of quality time together, differences in values and goals. And even though this is an example of why some people do have emotional affairs, I feel like those few things in particular are what I hear the most when couples come in for therapy. It's like the ongoing conflicts, are, just a lack of conflict resolution, a lack of, healthy conflict resolution, a lack of quality time, and differences in values and goals. And I feel like a lot of that would be alleviated if there was a lot more building of the foundation in the beginning. Like, why aren't you talking about your values and your goals? And figuring out if they align with each other. Why aren't you talking about the ways in which you solve conflicts, right? Ask about the family. Hey, how did your parents, resolve conflict, or how did your caregivers, or even like the adults you saw in your life, right, when you were growing up, how did they solve conflict? And then the lack of quality time, I feel like, is a big piece too, because we're a society of like go, 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 work, work, work. And so a lot of times we put priority on making money, working, hanging out with our friends to decompress, but not as much time or effort is given to having quality time. Another reason is personal insecurities, and that can include low self-esteem, a desire for excitement. I have had someone who they cheated because they were like, there's an excitement to it. They get an adrenaline rush. And then communication breakdown. Of course, that's an obvious but not so obvious and crucial piece. Again, having poor communication, it leads to misunderstandings and it leads to emotional affairs. I think that also goes back to what you were saying, cuz, about feeling like really understood by someone else. Maybe your partner does understand you well, but you two aren't really communicating about it. You're not having those deeper conversations. And then lack of appreciation is another reason. That's self-explanatory. And then emotional escapism, right? Like, escapism is considered like a coping mechanism where people seek to avoid whatever unpleasant realities are of their life, right? And it's not a healthy coping mechanism, but it is something that a lot of people do. And I do see that in the gaming world quite a lot. People are unhappy with who they are as a person. And so they escape in games and they feel like, oh, I have to devote all this time to this game because I have to be the best at this game. And then at least I'm the best at this game, even though I'm not the best in life, if that makes sense. Like, they need something that helps them feel good about themselves. And then at the same time, escape into another world that seems so much better than their current reality. Again, that's not an exhaustive list, but that is what is seen the most when you look at why people emotionally cheat.
And then moving on, emotional affairs are broken into 7 stages. The first stage starts off as just friends. It's an initial stage where there's a connection that's casual, platonic. It's starting with like friendly interactions at work or through social circles. Stage 2 is boundary crossing. And I think that this is the beginning of like where there's carryover with micro cheating. Increased communication and sharing of personal details with the other person, going beyond typical friendship boundaries. Commiserating is confiding in the other person about problems within the primary relationship, finding validation and support from them.
Can I just stop you right there for a second, because I hear this so much, and I'm always shocked that I have to sit there and have this conversation with people about, what's appropriate and what's inappropriate. Like, please, if you're sitting, actually, now I think about it, this is one prime example as to how one of my clients, one of my couples, but half of the client, it led to him having an emotional affair that eventually led to a physical affair. But he was unhappy in his marriage. He had just gotten married, and it wasn't what he thought it was going to be. And so he was going to this female coworker, and I don't know if it was a work spouse, but I just know she worked with him, and he was just consistently like, complaining about his wife, complaining about the relationship, and she was always like, "You're so amazing. If she can't see that, blah, 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 blah."
Wild.
Yes.
Listen, well, here's the thing that, I mean, I have told this to other females that I've counseled, that when a man is in a committed relationship, their value goes up in other women's minds, and they seem very attractive. Like, again, these are teenagers I was dealing with. This young lady and her boyfriend would come and spend a lot of time in my office in the morning. And I saw myself, other females walking by and making eyes at the male, like checking him out. And there was a level of dissatisfaction in the relationship. And I'm not going to blame that young man, because it takes two to tango. But when there is unhappiness or not feeling heard and he couldn't communicate, sometimes people who later on we talked about him being a people pleaser. And so like being a people pleaser and not vocalizing and speaking up, he eventually got to the point where he was understood by someone else.
Yep.
And that could lead to cheating, where you are confiding because you're frustrated or you're not feeling heard or you feel constantly attacked. Whatever the case, when you're looking towards other people for that instead of the person, or at least having that conversation with your partner.
I'm sorry, but I don't think I will ever, maybe because I've never felt that way before, but like, I just don't understand women who set their sights on someone who is in a relationship or who is married. I mean, I've heard like men say like, "Oh man, I had no idea this wedding ring is a chick magnet." I'm like,
it is. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. In
that
fact,
makes no sense to me.
Girl. In fact, with this teen couple, she broke up with the young man, and all of a sudden, lost value. Like all of a sudden,
none of the girls was flocking anymore.
Yes, and all of a sudden, it's like, oh, I feel completely isolated and alone, and and this is more than one, like
Makes
this another girl,
sense.
like she was starting to date this guy, and all of a sudden these girls are flirting with her boyfriend in front of her.
Yep.
And just, yeah, so.
They have no shame. Why? I mean, if you're going to do it behind my back, you're probably going to do it in front of my face too. But my thing is, okay, let's talk about self-respect here, okay? If you are making Google eyes and going after a man who is married or in a relationship, and then they turn around and they accept and those advances and they feed into it and they take it, go ahead and take advantage of that because it's in my face. She throwing it at me. Why do you want to be with someone like that? Because they will absolutely do the same thing to you. So either you're just looking for a quickie, or you're deluding yourself into thinking that, like, that's the other thing that I feel like they're doing. It's like, oh wow, he can commit. So if he could commit to her, why wouldn't he commit to me?
Yeah.
But they're looking at it so backwards. Like,
wow.
I mean, if he's talking to you, he's not committing.
Well, it's created in their mind like, oh, there's something wrong with his partner, and she can't appreciate or he can't appreciate the value. It's almost like an emotional affair is almost like this honeymoon, because you have this contact, but you're not in the trenches with them.
That pisses me off, man. Like, I don't know why I can't get her out of my head, but I had a client that I've had her for a couple of years, but she, graduated, got discharged, but she came back, and the problem wasn't the what I'm about to speak on. That's not why she came in, but this was an aside. But she had, like, got a call from the guy that the guy that she slept with, partner, called her and was like, hey, I'm pregnant. I'm about to have this baby in 4 days. I haven't been able to have sex with him, so he's been out on Tinder finding women to have sex with, and you're one of them. I'm just asking you, I'm trying to tell you what's going on so you're not surprised, and also ask that you please just leave him be. Her thought was not what I would have thought. I was thinking she was going to be like, oh my gosh, how could you cheat on your pregnant girl and all this stuff? No, her thing was, she clearly is not taking care of you the way you should be taken care of.
Yeah.
I was just, we're talking about an intelligent woman, right? But why? I mean, of course we trace everything back to her abandonment wound, but which, that also makes me wonder, are these women who have unresolved trauma, unhealed abandonment wounds? Now that would make sense, as to why they're going after unavailable men, right?
Yeah.
Because I don't see men out here like, well, actually, men don't give a crap whether you got a wedding ring on or not. They like, that look good. Let me holler. Let me shoot my shot. Like, they don't care. But yes, I was going to say, I don't want to make this gender, but I'm sorry.
Yeah, but no. I guess what I hear what you're saying is, with some wounds, that's what feels familiar. Mm-hmm. If you had a primary caregiver that was unavailable, and not prioritizing you at all, or have other commitments, then that's what feels like home. And so it almost feels natural. But let's get back to stage 4. Sorry. Fixation and flirting. Fixation is when you're developing a strong emotional connection with increased attention and flirtatious behavior towards the other person. So the fixation, that kind of goes in with almost like obsession, the thoughts and the frequency, and the flirting, which I kind of covered in some of the other examples with the relationship. It's almost unshy, putting it out there and trying to shoot their shot.
Yes, shoot the shot. The 5th one is valuing the affair partner more than the primary partner. I'm not even going to go into that because we have already discussed that into the the ground. The sixth one is disillusionment with home life. Again, that goes back to the escapism, right? I'm not happy. Don't feel understood. I don't feel like, attended to. And then the last step is separation. That is the desire to leave. That desire overtakes your desire to stay, basically. And you may also find yourself emphasizing all of the reasons you can think of to justify leaving your primary relationship. I know we still do need to cover how to overcome an emotional affair. How are we doing on time?
We're going over, and we thought it was going to be short.
I know. I was like, it's going to be the shortest one.
It's, just overcoming quickly. It's important. It's foundational to acknowledge and process your emotions. Setting that time to check in about how you're feeling, setting clear boundaries with the person involved, open communication with your partner, considering seeking professional therapy together, and working on rebuilding trust by actively addressing the underlying issues that led to the affair in the first place.
Yeah.
But honestly, first and foremost, this isn't something that just happens overnight. You can't just rush through these steps, and you have to spend the time, and you can do this on your own through inquiry, with a therapist, with a safe place to just get to the point of acknowledge how you feel.
Absolutely.
Acknowledge how you feel, acknowledge your values, get clarity on that. Because that's really should inform you on what your next steps are.
Absolutely. I know the piece on forgiveness, right? Like, yes, if you're at that place where you're like, hey, I know now we're working on this. I, want to forgive. If you forgive, then you're saying you're letting go. That is, you're not saying that what they did was okay or that you're cool with it, but you're saying I'm letting go. So in that sentiment, and in the sentiment of rebuilding trust, you cannot feel like I'm going to, and this may be subconsciously, but you cannot feel like I'm going to make this person pay for what they did for the rest of the relationship by throwing it in their face every time you argue, by checking their location and their phone all the time. Like, if you are saying, I forgive you, you are saying, I'm letting this go. And I want to build from this point forward. It won't do anybody any good to keep harping on what was in the past. You had a choice. You chose to stay.
Yeah. And for healing to take place, you have to have time to grieve, and you don't have to move out of that stage too fast. But that is tied with the forgiveness, because if you are looking to control or punish that partner, then you're contributing to the destruction of intimacy. And that's not rebuilding, that's continued destruction.
Absolutely. I do want to say really quickly before we end.
Yes.
We were talking about it off camera, off recording. But about, so like I was looking up statistics, which you notice I didn't give any statistics for emotional affairs. I couldn't really find any good ones, but along the way, I found some statistics that basically made me feel like, see, I told you so, people. Like, people are always saying that men are like, men are dogs. All of them cheat. They cheat a lot more than women do. And I was like, I don't think that's the case. I truly believe that women just don't get caught. They're sneakier, and they're more secret, and they're more meticulous with what they. So research did show that, when this is the women that did admit, because of course a lot of people don't, but of the women that did admit in those studies, 55% reported cheating. Of the men, 53%. I highly think that number is higher for women. I don't know about the men.
And this is for emotional affairs?
This is just cheating in general, infidelity in general. Like, because I couldn't find anything specific to the emotional affairs, but I was just like, see, I knew it. Like, I don't know.
I wonder if women feel more comfortable now. I'm just curious. I'm also wondering if women feel more empowered as in comparison to even say 50, 60 years ago. I don't know.
In the sense of like admitting it, or in the sense of
admission,
like thinking what they want. Like, you know,
they might even have more opportunity. It could be all of those things.
Okay. That's the other thing, right? Because I was having a discussion with some guys the other day, and they were just like, it's so much easier for women to cheat than men. And I was like, that may have been the case 20 years ago, 10 years ago, maybe. But now, absolutely not. The playing field is even because of social media, because of the internet. Like, you just jump on Tinder or Bumble or whatever, and you can find someone immediately. I think Tinder is the one that has like this thing that says like, I don't know, fling or short term or something. I don't know what the section is, but my client was saying like, you can click on that section, find somebody in your area to hook up with that night, male or female, and plenty of females on there that want that. I'm just saying it's so accessible now. So I don't think that there's any such thing now of like, oh, it's so easy for women to cheat but not men. Nope, buddy. Nope. Equal access.
Okay. This is what I will say to this. I'll say this. I think it's easier for women. I think that's a different topic. And maybe we should talk about online dating. I think guys have it hard to close the deal with women on dating apps.
Even if it's just who are in the chat room or whatever it's called. I'm saying chat room, AOL. Myself, even women who are specifically under that category of like, sex tonight.
I think that at least this is from what I've heard, and it's anecdotal from talking to males. Just their experience is that they have to cast the net far and wide and like blitz as many women as possible. And a woman's experience is that they're getting all of this attention and can sit back. They can sit back and say, yes, you, definitely not you. And like and maybe that happens to a small percentage of guys, but it's like, it feels like the animal world. How can I get this female to my place? Can I make my home? Do I have the setup to lure a female? Not lure, just attract a female to come in. No, that makes them feel bad. This feels like Animal Planet. Like, the male species is showing that they have a place to copulate and reproduce.
No, they just need to put some pictures on their profile. Great sweatpants.
Really?
Yep. Great sweatpants it up.
Women don't. Maybe there's a wide variety. Women are not a monolith. There are all sorts of types, but I would say.
Really? I don't know. I feel like the belief of like women not loving sex, not wanting sex.
Oh, I agree. That's a misnomer.
Absolutely. Like, we freaking love it.
No, in fact, some of them, you know what? Yes, we're not, but yeah, I found that in more conversations, women were more intense about it and having a high, what is it? Strong libido. Maybe even stronger. Maybe even stronger than males. Yeah.
Okay, but what's bull crap about the whole, like, because, you know, women in their 40s, 50s, you know, libido increasing, like, it's bull crap, because you're basically saying, hey, if you're married and your partner is not wanting sex in any way, shape, or form, go out there and get what you need. I mean, what are you supposed to do? I'm not condoning cheating. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying I think the whole biological piece of which, also makes me feel like maybe women were meant to marry men who are younger. Like, I don't know. That'd be a whole other thing. But
it seems like we have a lot to talk about.
So with that sentiment, we are going to do one more episode on the cheating series. However, was it
the focus will be the aftermath of an affair.
Okay.
Things that you might not consider because cheating, infidelity, whether it's emotional or micro or full on, the traditional sense is exciting. There's secrecy. There's all of these things that can be stimulating, but we're going to look at the not so pretty side, consequences, unintended,
Absolutely.
unexamined consequences. So
I mean, I know
that'll be the final.
We did one on like post infidelity, stress disorder, but this won't be. This will cover the general, not trauma realm, if that makes sense.
It's going to be focused on both partners in the relationship, the one who is the cheater and the one who was cheated on.
It would be amazing if we could get some guests on.
Oh yeah, I mean that would be like a 90-minute. I love getting guests.
I mean, but it's the last episode in the series, so it could be.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I would love to. I'm gonna get on that. Okay. As always, I appreciate you, cuz.
I appreciate you too.
You're amazing.
Right back at you. Ditto. I love this.
Thank you guys for tuning in.
Thank you.
We appreciate all the support and the word of mouth of getting our podcast out there. We truly appreciate you taking time out of your life, out of your day to give us a listen. So we hope you take care of yourselves. We hope you get something out of each and every one of these podcasts. Hopefully, even if it's just entertainment, even if you just like to listen to us laugh and joke, we appreciate you.
Have a good day, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.